In 2018, a Facebook post caught fire. It was shared by a bodybuilder who wrote, "This is my son's friend, Jared. Before I hear any wisecracks, Jared's been fighting lung cancer and we almost lost him. He was recently cleared to work out. His arms measured 8¼ inches and his legs just over 12. I'm taking him under my wing. Stay tuned for his progress." What Jared did afterward amazed millions.
Would you say you're a happy kid?
I would, for the most part, definitely as going through elementary school and middle school and junior high. I was a very happy child, and always a smile on my face and was always a pleasant person.
Jared was born with cystic fibrosis, a disease that causes mucus in the body to become thicker, creating issues in both the lungs and digestive system. The narrow airways get blocked, leading to infections and gradual damage to lung tissue. It brings a range of harsh symptoms that worsen as time passes. In 1962, the life expectancy for those with cystic fibrosis was only 10 years, but due to medical progress, that number has climbed. With antibiotics, drugs, enzymes, nebulizers, and more playing a part. Still, Jared managed to enjoy a fairly normal childhood.
My mother, my grandpa, and my brother, they were always right there for me at the drop of a hat. They have been awesome throughout my entire life. My grandpa was someone I always looked up to and someone I was always very close with because we were very similar.
However, as Jared moved into his teenage years, his health began to decline. Even with the treatments he received, cystic fibrosis, or CF, typically progresses with age, and Jared gradually started to accept the weight of this difficult truth.
It started to just turn into, I'm probably not going to be here a lot, because I learned in middle school, when I was growing up, the average lifespan of someone with cystic fibrosis was 25, and I was like, wow, that's really soon.
It's no surprise Jared's mindset grew more pessimistic. After everything he'd been through, the road ahead appeared dark and uncertain.
Once I reached high school, it reached the point where it's like all that positivity and outlook for a great life was just out the window at that point. I kind of felt cheated out of the prospect of a good life.
By the time Jared turned 19, things began slipping out of control. He started avoiding treatments, feeling as though he was just delaying what couldn't be avoided.
From there, it just got worse. Instead of trying to have a better quality of life, I just focused on what I could do to have the most fun. That was bad.
Essentially, he'd given up hope.
That's when I really stopped doing any of my treatments, any of my medicines. I didn't care at that point. I would put myself in the hospital for 2 weeks every 3 or 4 months.
Jared's lung function was deteriorating fast, and he grew sicker and more withdrawn. It got to the point where he spoke with his mother about arranging hospice care and writing a will. He had accepted that he was ready to die.
I think that's probably the hardest conversation I've ever had in my life. I remember fully accepting that. Just the absolute terrified look my mother had on her face.
Not long after that conversation, things took a turn for the worse.
It got substantially worse overnight. It was almost like I was drowning, but without being in water. It was terrifying. It was starting to suffocate my brain. I remember calling my mother and having her pick me up to go. I started hallucinating. The moment they saw me, they really went into, the doctors and nurses, they kicked it into high gear because they were I remember them telling me that if I had waited maybe an hour or two, that I wouldn't have had a chance to come back from it.
Jared had now lost nearly 70% of his lung capacity and was teetering on the edge of death. After witnessing his family's emotional response, he resumed his treatments, not for himself, but for his mother, brother, and grandfather. Even though he felt hopeless, he recognized how deeply his condition affected them and didn't want their efforts to feel in vain. He even made a promise to his grandfather.
I made a promise to him that if he had taken care of himself, because he was just as stubborn as I was, when it came to hospitals and our own health, that if he had went to get something checked out and taken care of, that I would actually start taking care of myself. Unfortunately, after he held up his end of the bargain, he had passed away a few days later.
Now it was Jared's time to honor his part of the deal. He reached out to a friend whose father owned a gym, hoping to begin weight training. His friend agreed, but said they'd need to start early at 5 a.m.
Oh man, I was just like, 5 in the morning, huh? Yeah, man, best time to go. And I was like, okay.
Of course, Jared had his doubts.
So a lot of it was just getting out of my own head, trying to tell myself that I belonged in the gym, regardless of what I looked like.
Just to be clear, the gym Jared was walking into wasn't your typical Planet Fitness. It had a single garage door for entry, no windows, and concrete walls covered in posters of bodybuilders who had trained there and made it pro. It was the textbook example of an old-school bodybuilding gym, and the man in charge, Mr. Donnelly, Jared's coach,
Kind of intimidating.
Yeah, he's a big guy.
You see, Mr. Donnelly wasn't just any trainer. He was a seasoned, no-nonsense bodybuilder who had once trained alongside legends like Arnold Schwarzenegger and Lou Ferrigno.
He's very caring. It was new for him to work with someone with my kind of disease, but he definitely took the time to learn. He was just so knowledgeable.
It's worth noting that back then, weightlifting wasn't considered safe for those with CF.
The doctors were skeptical about me doing weightlifting. They were like, well, you should do cardio and this and that. I was like, yeah, that's awesome. We're gonna go do weightlifting.
So after that Facebook post, Jared began his transformation.
And oh man, it took off from there. The whole waking up early to work out, I don't know why, but I loved it.
As Jared packed on more muscle, he found himself more and more motivated by the bodybuilders on the wall.
I kept looking at everyone that was on the wall, and I was like, I want to be up there. That's where I want to be next.
To push himself further, Jared realized he'd have to begin prepping for a bodybuilding competition.
I didn't want a handicap. I wanted to beat every normal, healthy person on the stage and just really, really drive that one home.
In only 3 months, Jared put on 30 pounds and looked like an entirely new person. Despite his illness, he took 4th place in his debut bodybuilding show, and the transformation was absolutely remarkable. Unsurprisingly, his journey ended up inspiring thousands online.
A man with cystic fibrosis is now a competitive bodybuilder. Dominic Garcia in Wheat Ridge, and Dom, what an incredible journey.
But that wasn't the best part. For Jared, he had achieved something far greater.
And making sure that everything my family had done for me to help me live a better quality of life wasn't going to waste anymore. Especially when it came to my mother, all her hard work and all her sacrifices were in vain.
Didn't your lung function jump up as well?
Substantially. I went from having like a baseline of 30-ish to 35% lung function to, at that time, 45 to 50%.
Jared had fulfilled the promise he made to his grandfather. He hadn't just slowed the advance of his cystic fibrosis, he had actually succeeded in improving his lung function.
It's crazy because a lot of the times with cystic fibrosis patients, once we lose that lung function, not very common for us to get it back.
Jared didn't just undergo an amazing physical transformation, it also had a major impact on his health, all thanks to bodybuilding, which ironically was something he likely shouldn't have been doing to begin with.
Love my doctors, but like I've said, I'm just a very stubborn person. I was like, yeah, we're gonna go do this anyway.
Kind of seems you like proving them wrong as well.
Yeah, no, that's definitely one of my favorite things to do. It's actually really nice sometimes. It's like it can help open up some people's eyes. You're like, oh, well, shit, he did it that way.
Following the competition, Jared left his hometown behind and relocated to Denver, ready to begin a new chapter and broaden his horizons.
Definitely reached a dark moment in my life because I didn't know anyone out here and I was all by myself. But I just looked at it like, it's gonna get better. I'm gonna make it get better.
Sadly, cystic fibrosis still tends to progress over time, even with modern treatments. Yet despite this, Jared has worked full-time for most of his life. He earned his certification as a personal trainer and is now studying nutrition to support others who face the same weight struggles he once did.
I want to be able to help people through and through.
While it would have been easy for Jared to fall back into his old mindset, his greatest achievement has been flipping that perspective. From living with CF to making CF live with him. And though he may never know life without the disease, he now stands as a symbol of grit and perseverance.